Could you survive a comet or an asteroid impact on Earth? Well, Gerard Butler did, even without his 300 Spartans. This is Urban Sentinel, and let's get into it. The movie Greenland, 2020 film, the premise is this. An asteroid was detected out in the solar system, very, very close, moving very, very fast to Earth. Not unlike the 3I Atlas comet that has been spotted and is projected to pass nearby 170 million miles or so from Earth later on this year of 2025. But within the film, the characters and the actions that are taken mostly by all of the surrounding persons, the background people, that's the focus of what this is going to be about. Now, the overall premise is this. A big asteroid, or a comet rather, was detected. It's coming towards Earth, and the initial information was superficial. You know, news people talking about, oh, you'll be able to see the comet as it gets closer in the daylight, and you know, the plume of the off-gassing is going to light up the sky, and it'll be a very rare, exciting event. Overlaid that with military transport planes taking off, flying through the sky within 24 hours before this impact was supposed to happen. Now, the primary character, he's an architectural engineer. He gets an emergency alert on his phone, but it was not just a general presidential emergency alert. It was specifically tailored to him, mentioning his name, his wife's name, and his son's name, giving information that was supposed to be going on. Simultaneously, that was also displayed on the TV in his house, but his wife, she didn't actually see it show up on the screen. Fast forward just a few hours, birthday party, friends and family and everything all around for his son's birthday, and the alert goes off again, only on his cell phone and only on the TV in their house. Everyone starts to wonder what exactly is going on, and then he makes the decision to tell his wife he got the alert. It says for me, you, and our son to meet at this Air Force base in Georgia. Now, they were just outside the Atlanta region of Georgia, but they were effectively still within the Georgia land area. And the Air Force base was just a few hours away somewhere else in Georgia, probably on the other side. I believe it was Robins Air Force Base. So now, at this point, all the friends are starting to panic because they realize that something's going to happen and that the comet isn't just simply going to pass by. Starting from that point is where things become more focused on prepping and emergency preparedness. So they have a limited amount of time. First thing he says within instructions is 1 bag per person. So he's going, packing a bag, his wife's packing a bag, getting stuff together for their son. She's not sure what to pack. She's basically grabbing stuff. They're asking questions, hot weather, cold weather. He has no idea. So they're just throwing everything they can. They had one of those roll behind suitcases, a backpack, and some other bag. They make sure that they grab their son's medication because he's type 1 diabetic. So they get that out, put that into a little medical bag, probably something, a little clear bag like you take onto an airport or into a stadium or something, not too big. Pack it up, get going. And of course, as they're leaving, the neighbors are rushing over, trying to find out, you know, where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? And things got a little tense when one of the neighbors brought her child out, crying and begging, just take her, just take her. And he's explaining the instructions were the 3 of us, no one else, no exceptions. So they go through that gut-wrenching process of basically driving around the neighbors and leaving their neighborhood. And then off they go. At the same time that all that's going on, you have a lot of other people out on the roads, out on the highway, and they're taking the most direct route, which is get on the highway, go from their point A to the point B. And if anyone's ever seen traffic around Atlanta under a normal condition, now you have this under that condition, and it's bumper to bumper to bumper, nothing but red lights, and they know that the clock is ticking. So he decides to take a little detour, couple of side streets, go here, go there, which is a smart thing to do. At least he had the general awareness of his environment to get that done. They make their way around, they start going, and then eventually they make it to the area where they're supposed to be. Now, along the way, they're already passing basically scenes of looting and chaos and panic. People at the grocery stores, the liquor stores, the pharmacies, any place and everything. People are just burning stuff to burn stuff, getting it all out, you know, in their era of despair. Once they make it to the base, cars are stopped, people are crowded all around, and to one extent, it was realistic, but to the other extent, it wasn't, because they somehow managed to make their way through this huge mosh pit of people. But I guess more or less to keep the storyline moving forward, they were issued bracelets after they showed a QR code on their phone, and that ties into something else. As we all can remember, the identifications and talking about digital IDs and, universal IDs, something like that would be a key factor in basically selecting or eliminating people for any particular reason. If you don't have that active code, once they scanned the barcode and they issued you, it was effectively almost like a hospital bracelet, put it on, and then boom, there you go. They get in, they're going through, there's still military personnel checking people, but they're doing cursory wanding. They're basically, if it doesn't start screaming, they're just waving it up, waving it down, moving you along, trying to get the lines going. Then they're told, put all your bags over here. You get one bag, put everything that you can fit into it. So it was a small size ditty bag, maybe, not more than 2 cubic feet maximum. And they had their 3 bags. So of course now, what do we do? What do we take out? So they start going through, taking out some clothes, taking out some other things, and they realize that the medicine wasn't in the bag. Now you're thinking, oh, they forgot to put it in. No, they did put it in, but, and I blame the kid for it, even though he's just a child. When they were driving, he wanted a little comfort. He grabbed his favorite blanket out of his backpack, and when he pulled it out, the medicine bag tumbled out quietly onto the seat. He was unaware of it, and of course the parents were unaware of it. So that has his insulin. They needed to get it. So now he makes the decision that I'll go back to the vehicle, I'll check the vehicle, and then I'll come back. And that's how the progression of the story starts moving from there. So at this point, one of the key things that I want to point out is in the beginning scene, them panicked and packing. They had no bags prepared. They didn't have a go bag. Even though Georgia as a whole is not really known for tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, or anything else like that, they still didn't have an emergency bag with just a set aside change of clothes and things like that. Now, I thoroughly understand with the insulin that has to be refrigerated, so you're not going to have that in a bag. And depending upon how it was administered, they may have an option to keep some set aside in a secondary case that they can just grab and throw in right away. But it seemed more or less that they were panic packing. Like they were told that literally you need to be going and on your way within that hour. So that was the first mistake. And of course, from that, they didn't have an opportunity to have things separated, to have the medicine in a secure pocket, to have any other types of items that you would need, personal hygiene needs in another bag, to even have your clothing separated into at least a dry bag. So this way you may have one bag that you're carrying, but inside you have multiple smaller bags. So if you have to basically ditch something, instead of the whole bag, you can take the critical items that you need and bring that with you. Or at minimum, it makes it easier to find something because everything is in a container within that bag itself. Now, moving forward, of course, as it goes, the base gets overrun by the tens of thousands of people trying to get on board these planes. Now, they're boarding C-17 cargo planes, and you got big wide aerial shots of all these planes out on the tarmac getting ready to be loaded up and all that sort of thing. His wife and his son get taken off to the side after she tells one of the MPs that my husband, I want to make sure he gets on the plane that we're on. He just went back to get my son's medicine. That was the red flag, because in this process of elimination and selection for survival, they're not taking people with disabilities, injuries, or illnesses. Anything that needs medical attention on any level is not going to be brought on board this survival situation, going on the basis that everyone in the movie that's going to the bunkers, they have some immediate need use. They're medical professionals, they're doctors, they're engineers, they're researchers. They're, in some cases, I'm sure that there are some people that were agricultural specialists and things like that. So you would need those people that after the widespread global catastrophe that's going to go on, you'd need people that have the skill and the understanding, because whatever technology they have is going to be in the bunker. And then from that point, they're going to have to work and get everything done. Now, with that being said, that is a justifiable reason to thin the herd. So the wife and the son, they were told, nope, you can't go. We're going to escort you out. Husband makes it back. He's on board the plane. Someone on the aircraft notices he's got a bag of medicine and says, hey, how'd you get that on board? It's for my son. He's diabetic. And then that person says, they wouldn't let my kid's sister on because he was a diabetic. Did you know someone? How'd you get him on? It's like, otherwise they wouldn't be on here. So of course he makes the escape to get off. The loadmaster was almost not going to let him off. He had just finished closing the tail, opens it back up. The huge amount of people had stormed the gate. The MPs and security forces are engaging them because a lot of those people were armed. So there's a shootout. And of course, one of the technicians pumping fuel gets shot and the fuel goes all over the ground. And we know where that's going to lead to a very dramatic explosion in slow motion, which it was still kind of cool. Now, the wife and the child make their way back through all the parked vehicles to get back to their vehicle. I don't know if she had spares or what on you, but of course they get back and, it's trash, but she also didn't have keys. Leaves a note, tells her husband, this is where we're going to go, meet us there, and then off they go. They're making their way on foot back down the highway, back down the roads, but she knows that she has to get her son his insulin because he's starting to look a little woozy. They get to the first pharmacy basically at the end of the highway. Probably they walk 2-3 miles, and it's total chaos as you would expect. There's already just stuff everywhere. They get inside. People are literally filling up shopping carts, filling up baskets, grabbing what they can of what they need or what they think they might need. She makes her way to the pharmacy, to the counter, gets behind there, starts digging through, finds the insulin that he needs. She also grabbed the applicators and the test meters and everything else. Meanwhile, a gang of guys comes in. They start shooting. They're yelling and screaming. They're shooting. Sometimes they're shooting in the air. Sometimes they're shooting at people indiscriminately. Sometimes deliberately, depending upon the situation. They make their way out of that situation. And that, too, also points to that this movie overall wasn't in real time, but it was in close proximity to real time. That it did not take too long. Once people realized that the asteroid wasn't going to pass by, the comet rather wasn't going to pass by, that it was going to impact, and that there were going to be more impacts, because in the beginning scene, there was one impact that was supposed to be the one that, it's going to hit in the ocean. And it almost did, but it hit Tampa, Florida instead. And that was a big, huge shockwave that came up, 15 Mississippis later and blasted out the windows. And they're up near Atlanta, Georgia. So from that point on, everyone realized that there were going to be random rocks literally hurling through the sky, coming down, hitting here, hitting there with no specific area, because as the Earth continues to rotate on its axis, that debris is just coming into the atmosphere. As it comes in, it's coming in at different angles, coming in hot, and you don't know where it's going to hit. Now, mistakes that were made, I'm going to be jumping through very quickly. The mother and the child, they hitch a ride with a woman that was in the pharmacy and escaped death just like they did, her and her husband. They start driving. Operational security flaw number 1. The child let out basically that his dad was on the plane. They knew then, those two strangers knew that the only way you get on the plane is if you have a bracelet. And they realized that, these two must have bracelets. So the idea was they were going to take the bracelet from the mother, toss her to the curb, and then bring the son with them, kidnapping, and take him to the next airbase that they were going to in hopes to get on. So not only because that information was effectively given out, that they knew you were a high value target, that now that son became an asset, became collateral, and their intention is to get on board, get on the plane, and, get out of there. On the other end, as the father's making his way, trying to catch up to get to where his family's going to be, he manages to hitch a ride with a bunch of people in a truck heading up to Canada. At some point in that back of the truck, it's like a farm truck covered up. He was talking with another guy there. That guy was stating that, no, my mother, she's a doctor. If she went, I haven't seen her in years. So we're just trying to get up to Canada because there are private pilots that are going to fly out to the location. 3 other guys sitting in the truck, there's maybe like 8 people in there, realized that he had a bracelet on him. And of course, their idea is to give us the bracelet, even though there's only one, and then we're going to take that. And of course, a fight ensues, and it ends up with at least 2 people being dead. And then again, the operational security aspect of it was, even though the bracelet to one extent was only good for that person, it's tied to that person's name, it was already scanned in. And even if the one guy said, you're going to give me your driver's license, what good would that do? I mean, you could have a person at a 7-Eleven look at the driver's license, look at you and go, yeah, you're not the same. Let alone the military base where they have strict orders only to let those specific people on. But needless to say, that's what occurred. Now, one of my pet peeves is he still had the small bag of the insulin. That was his whole purpose in going back to the truck in the first place, was to get that. He was quite casual about it. There were times where he put it down on the hood of a vehicle. There are times where he's walking around and it's just, no, tuck that into your pants. If that is your holy grail, if that is what you are looking and seeking to do, the whole purpose of you being, put that in your pants so you can be hands-free for everything else. You don't have to worry about dropping it, losing it, someone taking it. Now, one scene, the child actually made up for his, mistake in the beginning. Those two kidnappers got to the next military base. The wife had on the bracelet that was stolen. She used a rubber band to kind of hold it together on the inside so she could just hold it up. The man was holding the boy, and they basically got up to the front. We've got bracelets. And, he shows the kid, and that gets scanned, and then he scans the wife, and they step in. And as they're stepping in, the guard says, I need to see all three, meaning his. And then he's, someone tried to take it, and it must have fallen off. At that point, the son says, they're not my parents. And the guy's like, huh? They're not my parents. They're not my parents. So he did the whole stranger danger thing. So they got him away. Those two got arrested. That part was taken care of. The mother eventually made it to that base because she knew that's where they were headed for the next air base. They get reunited, and then they get on a bus to go, I think, up to Lexington, Kentucky. So at this point, they've moved out from the Atlanta, Georgia area up to the Lexington, Kentucky area where they're trying to get to her dad's place. Now, one of the key things to note in that is the leaving the note on the vehicle was definitely a plus, because cell phone service was spotty to shoddy to absolutely non-existent, not just simply for voice calls, but also for text messages. Simply put, a lot of the cell towers were either down because of power interruption or the jamming of the signals because they were just completely overloaded with people constantly trying to call, text, update, live stream, because a lot of the news reports that came in were coming in from people that were live streaming whatever was happening when, the parts of the comet were impacting. And in some cases it would impact and that person would be done. The live stream would be over. So having a here's what we do plan in a situation like that, if it's you by yourself and no one else, well, then you can get out there and you can wing it. But if you're just with one person, 10 people, whatever it is, have a concentric plan of rings that, okay, we're going to meet here at this location first, and we'll be at this location for a certain amount of time. After that, we're going to move to the next rally point, and then we'll be there. So if someone knows that, I missed that first rally point by 45 minutes, they're definitely gone, I'm just going to now make my way to the second one. So you don't have people showing up at a location after everyone's left, not realizing it, and they're waiting hour, 2, 3, 4 hours, and then they go. Or have someone show up to that location, think that everyone's left, even though they still had, 15 minutes left on the clock, and then they take off, and then everyone else is waiting there. What you want to be able to do is establish a pattern of meet at this location, X amount of time, move to the next one, leave some type of indicator, a chalk mark on the street, do something that distinctly is unique to our group that we would recognize and go, they were here, they went that way, that sort of thing. Moving to the later half of the movie, a lot of it based upon the realism of it. If you're not on that list and you're not in the transports, there's not much that can be done other than cross your fingers and hope that, you manage to avoid it. And there was one particular scene that kind of gave almost a throwback to the Twister movie, the first Twister movie, when in that movie, they were saying that they were detecting debris, and you've got literally cars and cows flying around, and one of the characters is like, debris, and you see all this large stuff being tossed about. The radio was broadcasting that there were molten globs coming down, small globs coming down, and then almost immediately you see what could have been football to bowling ball size bits of fire pummeling the ground, just literally obliterating asphalt, concrete, vehicles. Someone got tagged when they were trying to run from their vehicle. And it's one of those situations where in a case like that, there really is no actual defense. You're basically playing Frogger in 3 dimensions because you have to dip and dodge everything that's on the ground in front of you, as well as trying to avoid getting tagged by something coming down from the air at 1,000 miles an hour towards you. Now, with that, key takeaways. 1, always have a backpack with your essentials that you can put in there, and make sure, especially when it comes to medicine, that it's not medicine that needs to be refrigerated. you want to keep that obviously refrigerated, but if you can find some type of small insulated container, even if it's like a small styrofoam or a padded foil wrap, something that at least for a short period of time, you could take it out of the refrigerator, maybe slip some of those very small ice packs in, the type that you find in medical kits. You break it open, slip it in there with it. So if it's a case of insulin, it'll stay cold while it's inside the foil bag, and then put that into a hard plastic container so it doesn't get crushed. That would be a benefit. Have a plan of where you're going to meet, and always have an alternate location to meet up, or at least alternate routes to get from point A to point B. Because as I've said in different videos, that main road that you're taking, the fastest way out of the danger or the fastest way to your next spot, everyone else is going to be there. And then the people that aren't there are going to be on the next two obvious routes, the parallel routes that run off to the side. So if the highway is running north to south and there are two parallel street level roads running north to south, that's where the next group of people are going to be. And then you're going to have people on those interconnecting roads that try to bypass. Well, we'll cut down this street, go up 5 blocks, and then cut back in. And they're going to be behind hundreds of cars too. So you need to have, from where you are at, your home, your work, wherever it is, to have an idea of, it may be a wide loop around. You want to go north, but you may literally have to go south to go west, to go north, to go east, to get to that one point that you wanted to. So you may travel 3 miles to get 1 mile. You may travel 15 miles to get 10 miles. But if it helps avoid getting caught in traffic, because once you're stuck in there, and especially if other people aren't willing to move, aren't able to move, you may be pinned into a position where that's why cars get abandoned. People get frustrated, they can't get their vehicle out. Even if they got out from the spot that they were in, they can't get over to the next lane or turn around. So having that set up in your mind where you're going to go, and it's not always going to work. You may end up someplace where you've gotten so far off the beaten path that you're completely heading in the wrong direction, and you can't reroute yourself to get back over there. Now, side note, in relation to the actual comet that's coming around, supposed to be passing close to Earth December 2025, the 3I Atlas, which is the third interstellar asteroid terrestrial last alert system. That's that Atlas part. Similar situation in that it's supposed to be passing by, but not close enough to either get pulled towards Earth based upon our gravity, or intersect us in a way based upon our orbit going around the sun. But with that being said, you never know. Now, this in no way, shape, or form is stating that, oh, that's going to happen, that it's going to be another situation of life imitating art, which would not be too unheard of. But it is something to actually think about and to watch, because there's always the what ifs that are out there. Now, the movie ends with, of course, the family getting reunited and getting to the base, and then surviving that last impact, which is supposed to be the planet killer impact. The chunk of the comet was 9 miles long, they said, and it impacted somewhere in the southwestern European area. And it did a whole decimation, because that caused global seismic quakes, flooding, firestorms, and all that kind of stuff. And it panned to different areas of landmarks that we would recognize, showing the total destruction, from Sydney, Australia, to Paris, France, to a couple of places that I probably would recognize if I could actually see them not burned down and crumbled to death. But they managed to survive. And then, of course, the one part that still doesn't make sense to me is they open up the doors a few hours later to, take a look outside. Why? You're in the bunker. Now, this is not the civilians. This is the military people going, okay, the ground shaking has stopped and the last of the ash and the fallout has come down. Let's open up our biggest damn door in this base, have all the people that we just spent all this time trying to save and rescue stand right there in the entrance as we open it up to who knows what could be on the outside. No, that's ill-advisable. You send out 2 people, have them take a look around. Yep, it's screwed, and then go back in and then tell everyone else. But needless to say, that's how that movie ended, which I'm also aware that they are coming out with a second one, a sequel to that, Greenland 2 Migration. I saw the trailer for that. So that could be interesting, because that's definitely going to take on a different twist post-apocalyptic situation. I'm not sure how long it takes place afterwards, whether it's within the sequence of the movie of just a few weeks, or if it's chronological to actual time period. We're in 2025 now. The movie took place in 2020. So I don't know if that's the timeline that they're going to be in, that it's 5 years later and they're finally getting out to rebuild and, rediscover humanity and all that kind of stuff. But the takeaways within that are relatively simple. You can't do anything about a comet or asteroid. You can't really do anything about a volcano or a tsunami. Any of those natural events or even man-made events, the actual event itself, you have no control over how big it is, how far it goes. It's your response and your actions that you take beforehand if you have warning, or after it's happened and you survived. You know, what are you going to do? Because it was not a total decimation where they were the only humans left. There were other bases around the globe, and there were other places that apparently survived. So it still comes down to, yes, realistically, if you were on the coast within 200 miles of the shore, or if you were in one of those impact areas, you probably, if not during the initial impact, soon thereafter may have died, no matter how well prepared you are. That's just the way life goes. You can wear your seatbelt every single day in your vehicle and then get T-boned by a tractor trailer truck, and that's the end of that. But one of the other scenes looking at, you saw the global destruction as it panned out. Big impact areas, small impact areas. I happened to freeze a frame and looked at it, and I could make out Long Island, and then of course the Connecticut Sound in Connecticut where I'm at. And realistically, it looked like a large chunk hit somewhere in the northwestern Massachusetts area and just made a big, huge crater almost all the way down in Connecticut. So I have a feeling that I probably would feel that. But if I were still alive, I would definitely do either a live stream or at least record a video, post it up afterwards. But for right now, that's all I've got for you. And check out these next videos that YouTube says you'll enjoy watching. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.